What if the very pain you are running away from is actually the key to your freedom? What if the fear you feel every time you open your mouth to speak English is not your weakness, but your path to power? This is not just about language, my friend. It is about life, discipline, and courage. And today, we begin with the story of a man who proved this to the world, David Goggins, the author of Can't Hurt Me. Goggins was not born strong. He was not born disciplined. In fact, he grew up broken. His father was abusive, his childhood filled with violence, racism, and poverty. He was overweight, insecure, and almost invisible in school. He could barely read, he stuttered, and his classmates laughed at him. Imagine carrying that kind of pain every single day. For many people, that would have been the end of the story. But for Goggins, it was the beginning. He discovered something most people never do. Pain can be fuel if you refuse to let it break you. Now, I want you to pause here and think of your own English journey. Maybe you too have felt invisible when you tried to speak. Maybe you stuttered. Maybe someone laughed at your accent. Maybe your words got stuck in your throat. And after that, maybe you promised yourself, I will never speak in public again. That pain you felt, it's real. But here's the truth. Just like Goggins' pain became his power, your fear of speaking can become your path to fluency if you face it instead of running away from it. David tells a story from his teenage years. At one point, he weighed nearly 300 pounds. He ate donuts, drank milkshakes, and escaped reality through food. Every time he looked in the mirror, he hated himself. He wanted to be a Navy SEAL. But how could a 300-pound boy even dream of running miles or surviving military training? People laughed when he shared his goal. They told him it was impossible. But Goggins didn't just dream. He decided. He started running. The first time he ran, he couldn't go more than a quarter mile. His lungs burned, his legs screamed, and his mind shouted, "Stop! You can't do this!" But instead of stopping, he went back the next day. And the next. Slowly, painfully, step by step, he transformed himself. Isn't this exactly what happens when you start speaking English? The first time you try, your mouth feels heavy. Your brain screams, you can't do this. You forget words. You mix grammar. People may even laugh. But just like Goggins didn't stop running after his first painful attempt, you too must return the next day and the next. Because fluency is not about perfection. It is about persistence. Here's the first lesson Goggins teaches us. You are capable of far more than you think. He calls it the 40% rule. When your brain tells you, I can't go further, you're actually only at 40% of your capacity. The body and mind can always push further. Think about that for your English practice. You might think, I can't speak for more than 2 minutes in English. But the truth is, you can. You are just stuck at your own 40% wall. If you push a little beyond the embarrassment, if you keep talking even when your grammar is broken, you'll discover a hidden strength. Goggins transformed his life by embracing pain. He would run ultramarathons, sometimes on broken legs, sometimes while coughing blood. Why? Because he knew the body follows the mind, and the mind only grows when you challenge it. So if you want English fluency, don't avoid embarrassment. Seek it. Yes, you heard me right. Seek it. Because every time you embarrass yourself, every time you make a mistake, every time someone corrects you, your brain is learning, your confidence is being forged, and your future self is being born. Think about your favorite English speaker for a moment. Do you believe they never made mistakes? Do you think they were born speaking smoothly? No, they too were once beginners. The only difference is, they kept speaking through the pain. Goggins says, you have to callous your mind. Just like hands form calluses when you lift heavy weights, your mind forms strength when you lift heavy fears. Every mistake is a weight. Every failure is a weight. And every time you face them, you grow stronger. I remember one student from my channel wrote to me saying, "Sir, I tried speaking in English at my office presentation. People laughed at my pronunciation. I felt humiliated." And you know what I told him? I said, "Congratulations. That laughter was your first callus, because now you know what it feels like. And if you don't run away, if you keep speaking, the same people who laughed today will clap for you tomorrow." David Goggins once said, "You will never learn to control your mind unless you push it into uncomfortable places." For him, that was running in the desert, doing pull-ups until his hands bled, training when his body was broken. For you, it's speaking English in uncomfortable situations, ordering food in English even if your voice shakes, introducing yourself in English even if you forget halfway, joining a conversation in English even if you have only 2 sentences to say. That is your desert. That is your battlefield. And if you show up every day just like Goggins, you will transform. So here's my message for you today. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting to be ready. You will never feel ready. You will never feel perfect. Start speaking now, today, even if it's messy, even if it's broken, because fluency is not born in comfort. It is born in courage. And remember this, Goggins didn't become a Navy SEAL in 1 week. He didn't lose 100 pounds in a month. It took years of discipline. You too will not become fluent overnight. But if you decide today, and if you keep pushing beyond your 40% every single day, one day you will wake up and realize you are not scared anymore. You are free. And in the next section, we will dive into one of Goggins' most powerful tools, the accountability mirror. A simple, painful, but life-changing habit that can transform both your English learning and your entire life. Don't miss it, because this is where things get real. Have you ever looked into the mirror and hated the person staring back at you? Be honest, most of us have. We see not just our faces, but our failures, our fears, our broken promises to ourselves. That mirror reflects not only what we look like, but also who we have become. For David Goggins, that mirror was the most painful teacher of his life. He called it his accountability mirror, a place where no excuses could survive. When Goggins was young, his life was a complete mess. He had no direction, no discipline, and no confidence. He was overweight, barely educated, and drowning in self-doubt. But one day, he stood in front of his mirror and did something most people never dare to do. He told himself the raw truth. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't lie to himself. He said, "You are fat. You are lazy. You are lying to yourself." Imagine the courage it takes to say that to your own reflection. But that moment changed his life. Because truth, even when it hurts, sets us free. Now pause for a second. Imagine your own accountability mirror. If you stood in front of it today and you had to speak the truth about your English, what would you say? Maybe it's this: "I know many words, but I don't practice speaking." Or maybe, "I keep saying I will start, but I never do." Or, "I'm afraid of being judged, so I stay silent." It hurts to admit it, doesn't it? But that pain is necessary, because until you are brutally honest with yourself, you will keep repeating the same cycle. David started writing little notes and sticking them on his mirror. These notes were his truths, his promises, and his goals. One note said, "Lose weight." Another said, Study for the ASVAB exam. The military test he kept failing. Another said, run every day. Every time he looked into the mirror, those notes stared back at him. They reminded him of the person he wanted to become. And slowly, painfully, he started living up to them. This is where your English journey connects directly to Goggins' accountability mirror. You too need notes, reminders, truths. Imagine writing on a sticky note. Speak in English for 10 minutes today. Another one? Record myself speaking and listen. Another. Learn 10 new phrases and use them in real life. Stick them on your mirror. So every morning, when you look into your own eyes, you know. This is not just about learning a language. This is about keeping promises to yourself. The mirror forces you to face your weaknesses. For Goggins, that weakness was laziness and fear of hard work. For you, maybe the weakness is hesitation, or perfectionism, or waiting for the right time. But here's the secret. Weakness only loses its power when you shine a light on it. The mirror is that light. I remember a story from one of my viewers. She wrote to me, "Sir, every morning I looked in the mirror and told myself, I will speak English someday. But someday never came. Then I tried your mirror method. I wrote, I will practice for 15 minutes today. It was painful to look at it because I knew I couldn't escape. But you know what? I started, and now, for the first time, I can actually introduce myself confidently in English. That is the power of accountability. It doesn't lie. Goggins says the accountability mirror is not about being negative. It is about being real. Most of us lie to ourselves to protect our feelings. We say things like, I don't have time to learn English, when really, we spend hours scrolling on social media. Or we say, I'm just not good with languages, when really, we've never practiced consistently. The mirror destroys those lies. It tells you, you do have time. You're just not using it. Or, you could be good, but you're not practicing. The truth may sting, but it also sets you free. Here's a practice I want you to try starting today. Tonight, before you sleep, go to your mirror. Look straight into your own eyes and say out loud, I want to speak English fluently, but right now I am afraid. Don't hide, don't pretend, admit it. Then write one small, clear goal on a piece of paper. Tomorrow I will read one page in English out loud. Stick that note on your mirror. Tomorrow, when you wake up, look at that note. Don't walk away until you've done it. This is how transformation begins. Not with big dreams, but with small, painful truths. Goggins didn't lose 100 pounds in 1 week. He didn't run an ultramarathon in his first attempt. He started with one sticky note, one painful truth, one small step, and then another, and another, until the impossible became possible. Now think about this. What if every mistake you ever made in English became a note on your mirror? Forgot grammar today. Keep practicing. Silent in meeting. Speak one sentence tomorrow. Scared of phone calls? Make one call in English this week. Imagine how powerful you would become in 1 year if you face those truths every single day. That is how fluency is built. Not in silence, not in hiding, but in the mirror of accountability. And here's the beauty of this method. When you practice accountability with your English, it spills into the rest of your life. You become disciplined, focused, unstoppable. Because if you can conquer the fear of speaking, a fear that touches your identity, your pride, your confidence, you can conquer anything. Goggins used to say, the accountability mirror is where the real work begins. And I'll add this for you. Your accountability mirror is where fluency begins. Because it's not just about English. It's about becoming the person you promised yourself you would be. So tonight, start your mirror journey. Write your first note. Look at your first truth. Speak your first promise. And tomorrow, live it. Because the person in that mirror is waiting to meet the stronger, braver, more fluent version of you. And in the next section, we'll explore another brutal but powerful Goggins tool, the cookie jar. This is not about sweets. It's about the memories of your past victories, the fuel that can carry you through the darkest days. And trust me, once you David Goggins introduces a concept so simple yet so powerful that it can change the way you face every challenge in life. He calls it the cookie jar. At first, it sounds almost funny, like something from childhood. But behind the name is a strategy that helped him survive Navy SEAL training, endure ultra-marathons, and push through pain that would break most people. So, what is the cookie jar? Imagine when you were a child and there was a jar of cookies in your kitchen. Every time you opened that jar, you felt a rush of happiness. One cookie could change your mood, give you energy, and make you smile. Goggins took this simple idea and applied it to mental toughness. But instead of cookies, he filled his jar with memories, his victories, his achievements, the times he had already beaten the odds. And whenever he faced something impossible, he reached into that jar, pulled out one memory, and said, "If I could do that, I can do this too." Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, "I can't. I can't speak English. I can't remember grammar rules. I can't talk to strangers." In those moments, your mind is empty. No motivation, no courage, no hope. That's when you need your cookie jar. You need to reach inside and remind yourself of a time you succeeded, a time you overcame something hard, a time you didn't give up. For Goggins, the cookie jar included memories like surviving a childhood full of abuse and pain, passing the Air Force tactical training when he was scared of swimming, losing 100 pounds in 3 months to qualify for the Navy SEALs, enduring Hell Week when most of his teammates quit. Every time he felt broken, he pulled out one of those cookies, and suddenly the impossible didn't feel so impossible anymore. Now let's connect this to your English journey. You may feel stuck right now. Maybe you tried speaking and froze. Maybe someone laughed at your accent. Maybe you feel like no matter how much you study, fluency is far away. But pause for a moment. Haven't you already achieved things in your life that once felt impossible? Think back. Maybe you passed an exam you thought you'd fail. Maybe you got a job you thought you weren't qualified for. Maybe you stood on stage once shaking with fear and still spoke. Those are your cookies. They're proof that you're stronger than you think. Even in English itself, you have victories. Remember the first time you understood a movie scene without subtitles? That's a cookie. Remember when you ordered food in English, even if your grammar wasn't perfect? That's a cookie. Remember the first compliment you got for your English? That's a cookie too. Here's the practice. I want you to create your own English fluency cookie jar. Take a notebook, or even a real jar. Write down every small victory you've had with English. Spoke for 5 minutes with a friend. Read a whole article without translation. Watched a video and understood it. These may feel small, but they are not. They are your proof. They are your cookies. And when the day comes that you feel like quitting, open your jar, look at one cookie, and remember, you've already come this far. Goggins says the cookie jar is about creating mental fuel. Because when you're tired, when your mind screams stop, your past victories remind you that you are capable of more. And here's the secret. Every new cookie you add makes your jar stronger. So the more often you push yourself, the more often you practice, the more cookies you will have for the future. I'll share a personal story here. One student wrote to me saying, "Sir, I was so nervous during my first job interview in English that I almost didn't go. But I remembered that I had once introduced myself at a seminar in English, even though I was shaking. I told myself, if I did that, I can do this. I got the job." That's the cookie jar in action. Do you see how this works? Fluency is not about being perfect today. It's about building memories of courage, collecting them, and using them as fuel tomorrow. Every mistake you survive, every conversation you attempt, every fear you face, it all becomes a cookie for your jar. Now here's a challenge for you. Tonight, I want you to write down 3 cookies from your English journey so far. Don't say, "I don't have any." You do. Maybe it's the first time you understood a line from a Hollywood movie. Maybe it's when you read a motivational quote in English and it touched your heart. Maybe it's when you whispered a few English sentences to yourself in the mirror. Write them down. Put them in your jar. Tomorrow, when you feel lazy or afraid, pull one out. Tell yourself, if I did this, I can do more. And remember, cookies don't always come from English alone. They come from your whole life. Every time you've shown courage, discipline, or resilience, you've baked a cookie for your jar. So when English feels hard, reach back into your life. Remember how you passed your driving test, even when you failed the first time. Remember how you kept running even when your body hurt. Remember how you survived heartbreak, failure, or rejection. If you could survive those storms, what is one English sentence compared to that? David Goggins often says, "Most people forget their victories. That's why they feel weak." Don't forget yours. Build your jar, fill it with cookies, carry it everywhere in your mind. Because when fluency feels far away, your cookies will remind you. You've already beaten harder battles. So here's the truth. You are not starting from zero. You are not empty. You have a jar full of proof, waiting to be opened. And every time you practice, every time you push, you add another cookie. One day you'll look into that jar and realize you're fluent, confident, unstoppable. And with that, we close part 1 of Can't Hurt Me plus English Fluency. We've covered 3 powerful tools: the 40% rule, the accountability mirror, and the cookie jar. Each one is not just for Navy SEAL training. They are for you, here, today, on your journey to English fluency and personal greatness. But this is only the beginning. In the next part, we'll go even deeper into the mindset of resilience, exploring how to callous your mind against fear, rejection, and failure, and how that directly transforms not only your English, but your life.